my coffee here and today's guest by my side. It's time to dive in. Welcome to the Circular Coffee Break podcast, where we'll be talking about everything circular and beyond. Now, my guest today is someone I know already for a very long time, so I'm really happy to have him on the podcast today. Jan Timm Utecht, the CEO of Globe Hope. Globe Hope, for those of you not familiar, is a Finnish pioneer in sustainable fashion and design, creating innovative, high-quality products from upcycled materials to promote circular economy. And it has been a company that I've actually been following for many years, and that has a space in my wardrobe at home. So I'm really looking forward to talk with Jan Timm about the company's past, present, and specifically the future, and the future of circularity. Welcome to the show, Jan Timm.
Thanks a lot. Very nice to be here, and thank you for having me.
Great. I mean, let's maybe dive right in. And to get us started, could you maybe introduce yourself a little bit, your background? How did you end up at Globe Hope? And share a bit about your role and the company itself.
Yes, sure. I'd love to. I've been very interested in fabric, textiles, and everything connected to the fashion and textile industry for as long as I can think of. I had my first sewing machine when I was 8 years old, and when I came to Finland, looking at Marimekko, for which I've worked for 13 years in sales, and then after that in some other companies for the textile industry, feel drawn towards the material that's so diverse and very interesting to put into use, and everybody uses textile. I think that's so important to recognize when it comes to recycling and reusing materials that are often a little bit distant, are more difficult to process. Textile, everybody knows, and everybody has a touch and touches your body. I think that's why Globe Hope as a company has drawn my attention 3 years ago when I started there as CEO. And Globe Hope as a company and the business concept, the idea behind it, it's probably more than just a business concept. It's about changing the world, changing the way consumers think about textiles. And textile as in post-first use, the second cycle, whether it be as second-hand, upcycled, recycled, or then as a totally new product.
Yeah, perfect. And as you said, I mean, Globe Hope has been around for a long time. And I remember it as one of the first companies actually looking at this upcycling trend. I think nowadays you have more and more companies and also private people basically doing upcycling with different materials. But I remember I actually bought a bag made out of seat belts and old military clothing sacks or something like that, and made into a bag. And that was at that point in time really something different. That was something that you hadn't seen in that context. So,
and I think that's part of our journey towards where we are at the moment. 20 years, actually we are 21 years old now. So we started 2003 with a vision of utilizing textile that's already available on the market. Our founder, she had a fashion company before. She decided, okay, the fast fashion and all this really quick turnover of fashion items can't continue like this. There's so much already textile out there. Let's utilize what we have. And it was quite a unique way to approach designing products from not existing materials, but existing items that had a totally different life before. Nowadays, we've evolved into a company utilizing a lot more materials that are recycled also, because it gives us a possibility to grow, it gives us scalability, which was not possible 20 years ago. But the leverage that we got when we first started, the attention that we got to the concept, lived for probably, I'd say, the first 10 years of the company, where as a front runner of the circular economy when nobody was talking about circularity.
Yes.
It was sustainability, and sustainability was basically an ecological concept. I think this has changed a lot now towards a 360-degree approach, where sustainability and circularity is not just the ecological approach, whether it's the water impact when you use recycled cotton versus virgin cotton, where there's a lot of savings in water, whether you use other materials that can be recycled, and there's a lot of savings in material energy that went into or goes into the material production. Nowadays, it's more about the 360 degrees approach of making sustainability and circularity something that touches people, touches the society, touches the decision makers. It needs to be not anymore a triple helix discussion. It needs to be a much larger discussion than just talk about governments and universities and then consumers and companies. There needs to be a whole infrastructure that needs to be involved in it. And I think this is what we've tried during the next 10 years. The last 10 years has been a lot more focus on changing people's perception on textile and textile industry.
And I think you're making an extremely good point there. It's a large systemic approach that we need to look at, and I think it's natural to evolve over time to basically go and look at new ways of approaching circularity. As also, I think the field of circularity or the idea, the understanding, as you just outlined, has changed a lot. If you look back 10, 20 years. Not many people actually didn't know what circular economy is when you mentioned the term. I mean, still today, a lot of people have challenges understanding the concept, and they're more talking about energy efficiency, material efficiency, not necessarily about the term circular economy. But it has become much more mainstream than it was when Globe Hope started. Now, related to that, you already alluded to that a little bit, but how has the approach to circularity over time changed, and what have, from your point of view, been the key milestones? Has it been, as you pointed out, more the societal understanding? Has it been the technological development that enabled you as a company to look into new areas? What has been the driver of this change towards like more the material usage, the recycled material usage, and these type of concepts?
I think it's in this digital age, it's very easy to think about binary answers. I think it's impossible to say 0 and 1. It's one or the other. I think it's an evolvement of everything that you just mentioned, a combination. The consumer, of course, has a big role. We can't, as a company, basically make an impact if nobody is interested to purchase our products. We try to be as transparent and as good in making products that are interesting to people. When 10 years or 20 years ago, as you mentioned, the idea was what made the difference. Yeah. And it was enough. I wouldn't say it was enough. We still had good products then, but it was enough kind of to convey the idea with a product using materials that maybe were washed out a little bit already, and maybe there were little stains because it had seen life before. Now, 20 years on, that doesn't fly anymore. Yeah. Consumers want to have a product that incorporates the idea of sustainability and circular economy, but it has to look good. It has to be, of course, quality. That's a giver. I mean, a sustainable product can't be sustainable, even if it's produced in a sustainable way, if it's made for fast fashion. But it was 20 years ago okay to have something that looked recycled. Now we try to put a lot more focus on the design, the the layout of the product and how it's perceived as a competitor towards any other mainstream brand. A bag is a bag. Yeah. And I think it's important for sustainable brands as well to understand this. It's not enough to only be sustainable. You have to have something that people want to buy, and the focus needs to be on that. And then to have a product that lives long enough. You can have a bag that can live for 20, 30 years when, let's say, a jacket goes out of use, out of fashion, or might not be good enough to use anymore after a year because of technical aspects. The same jacket can be transformed into a bag. We offer a lot of services to companies, recycling and reusing their workwear, outdoor jackets, where the jacket is not used anymore as a jacket after, as I said, the year. But then if we make this into a bag, a weekend bag or a shopper, and give it back to the same company, utilizing the same material in their, let's say, communication as a sustainable and responsible brand, it can live on 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other option would be to disintegrate the jacket and gain energy. That's a way to kind of recycle, if you want to think about it that way. But that can still happen in 30 years with a bag. Our approach is to make sure that we have the highest level of quality in the fabric and go to a slightly lesser quality and slightly lesser, that the stages are as long as possible, and the quality disintegrates as slowly as possible. Because there's often only solutions to disintegrate or to chop it up into pieces from 100% to like a quality of 5%. We try to keep the quality as high as possible. And I think there needs to be more innovative ideas around this, and we try to do that. We are a small company, but we've done it for a long time, and our mind is and our visibility is bigger than what you think if you look at our turnover, for example.
No, absolutely, and I agree with you. I think very often the perception, we talked a little bit about that before we pressed record. I mean, the perception of circularity is basic recycling. You produce a product, afterwards you recycle it, and then you're circular, which is, I mean, it has some truth to it, but it's not the whole truth. I mean, circular economy is much, much broader than the recycling approach is in that context. So I fully agree. And the idea of extending the life of a material and giving a material a new life after the first, after the second, after the third life is naturally critical in that context. And I agree. I mean, I love the bag that I think I actually got 20 years ago or something, and it's durable. It's I still use it to the day today. So from that point of view, it was always fashionable, but naturally, I guess in order to reach new parts of society, new users, you basically need to have, as you said, alternatives to the products that people are used to, and basically expand your offering in that sense. Now, there's a lot of talk about sustainable fashion recently. I mean, even magazines like Vogue start to have special editions on sustainable fashion and talk about circularity and all of these topics. So it's becoming more and more of the mainstream to be talked about. But unfortunately, I feel it's not necessarily the mainstream when you see people go out and buy new things and go shopping, and specifically with things like Black Friday, and by now it's Black Friday week, or Cyber Monday, and by now it's Cyber Week, and Christmas shopping week, and whatever other big events we have. Where do you see some of the challenges of promoting sustainable fashion and really getting it into the mainstream, that it's not just a secondary thought, but that it becomes the first option of people? And how have you as Globe Hope been navigating some of these challenges on the way to basically making sustainable fashion the number one choice of people?
Yeah, I think it's a very, very relevant question. How to get people to buy a product that's more sustainable, because it's just too easy to buy something that's not sustainable. And there's a lot of information out there, and sometimes there's too much information out there, so it kind of gets blur who actually is sustainable, who is more transparent, who actually, and even if you are transparent, can you trust what companies say or what consumers, influencers convey in there, and all this like social media that kind of tells you a story that a lot of people want to follow, but to question, even if you're very well educated and very well informed, it gets very hard to really make a safe and sound decision. I think the most important, to come back to your question, the most important thing when it comes to promoting sustainable consumption is to make sure that the product is affordable. It doesn't need to be cheap. I think if you look at, for example, globalization, and there's so many companies out there who, let's say, come to a market and then compete with a different, let's say, cost setting in their environment, which makes it very hard for smaller companies in a different environment to compete with those companies. So I don't say all companies need to go on the same price level. There needs to be a premium, and it's okay that there's a premium for high quality and high value products with a mindset and very important values. However, the difference can't be too much. If we create products that are 5 times the price to the consumer with the best idea of circularity, nobody will buy such a product. And I think that's, for example, what we did 6 years ago. We changed our clothing collection from existing textiles to a collection that's made from recycled yarn, which made it possible for us to get more people at a lower price point to buy the product. It did mean that we had to go into a different production channel. We had to source a totally different product from a different country. I mean, in this case, India. At the moment, our clothing comes from India. And the reason behind this, and we did all the background checks, and the company that we work with is a company that our partner has worked with for 20-25 years. There's a lot of textile waste in India, and we use post-industrial waste to create new yarn. We couldn't do that in Finland. We couldn't do that in Europe. There's no production that actually creates that kind of volume in yarn. Maybe in the future, maybe that will happen. But at the moment, in order to get a product at a price level where consumers are interested to buy the product also. So it's not just a beautiful idea, and 0.5% of the population could afford it. Now a lot of people can afford it. And then we can make an impact more on a national and global level, and not just on a micro level. I think you have to offer a product that's actually affordable and get people excited, of course, as well. I think that's one of the main things that we've been trying to focus on, and not to lift our, for example, now the bags are made in Finland, some are made in Estonia, with partners we've worked with for 20 years. Some of the seat belt bags that we make come from small workshops in Finland with fantastic craftsmen craftswomen who create those bags for us. And yet they are at a price point where we compete with other brands who make them a lot further away. We could use higher prices, and that probably would make it easier for us. But at the moment, we try to really keep the product affordable as well, so that a large population of consumers can actually use our product as well, and get a feel how beautiful it is, how good the quality is from something recycled.
Yeah. No, absolutely, and I mean, I think again, you're making an extremely good point. I mean, it's not only about sustainability and circularity naturally in the consumer decision process. I mean, there's a hierarchy or even competing priorities that people have, which is affordability, which is fashion. I mean, do I look good in what I'm buying, or is it just something I buy because I can only afford it, or I have a specific agenda? Sustainability is on that list of priorities, and there's a long list of priorities that are actually competing with each other. And if you want to address a wide range of consumers, users, customers, you need to basically play to all of these priorities at the end of the day in the right balance, naturally. But that's an important point in that. At the same time, I mean, it's also about naturally educating, and educating is maybe the wrong word. That always sounds like I will tell you what to do, but creating awareness, creating like this understanding of what is the difference between different products, how they're produced, between fast fashion and more sustainable fashion, between like I order the same shirt in 5 sizes because I want to try it on, and then I send back 4 of them or even 5 of them, worst case, and with that I create a very bad footprint. How do you see that, and also the role you at Globe Hope are taking and have been taking for a long time, and basically creating that awareness and making sure people understand where your products are coming from, where the materials are coming from, and what your mission is at the end of the day?
Yeah, this is exactly what our entire business concept comes from. We've always start the design process from the material that's already available. If you think about other companies, like fashion design companies, they would go out into the market, look at product, go into trends, look on different colors that are maybe coming up in a year, and then they have another year or maybe another couple of months to design a beautiful product. For us, it's the material that we get, that we source. We have to commit to the material much earlier, not just from a design perspective, but from a production perspective. So everything we would like to produce in a year, when we design, create marketing material, the samples for the first photo shoot, is happening at a time when we've already sourced all the product, or not even sourced, but received all the product or the material for that production round. We can't get more. Often we can't get more when there's more demand. Sometimes we have too much because we overestimate that a certain color that we've received and we can't change will sell better than it does. But this is our design process. So this is basically how we start the entire design thinking around our concept. It's about telling that story what makes Globe Hope so interesting, because we come from used jeans, for example. They might be dyed into black jeans, and then we utilize them as bags. Second grade seat belts. It's like Christmas when we get delivery from the subcontractor of those seat belts, because we never know what's in there. There's always black, because that comes as a natural B quality that just happens in production. But then there's certain colors that might be weird. Neon orange, neon yellow that we had last spring, and we created something beautiful out of it. And we tell a story around this. So it's really about not educating, but telling the consumer how this came about and what the beauty is, how much love and design and creativity goes into creating a collection, and not just taking everything that's possible and make something out of it. I don't want to dismiss the creativity of other companies who do it in a more traditional way. However, our approach requires a lot more creativity around managing everything together into a cohesive collection when you work with an existing amount of textile waste, as you would like to, like a lot of people would call it. I try to avoid the name waste because we consider everything as a resource, as a material that can be used. And I think it really comes down to the storytelling.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely, and I love the idea of basically having a piece of clothing that has a story, that has lived a life. I mean, it's very similar to secondhand. I have 2 teenage sons, and they love secondhand because they buy jackets, and the jackets have a story. They have been somewhere. They're sometimes even older than they are themselves, and they have been places, and you can see that with the wear and tear and all of that. And I think that's an important thing. On the material, I actually heard a quote a couple of years ago, which I think is perfect. There is no waste. It's basically material that hasn't found its identity. And I think that is so true in your case, because you get the material and you find a new way of using the material and giving the material a new life in a beautiful, designed and usable way in that context. And I think that is very often the thinking that we're missing when we talk about waste, as waste is something you have to get rid of, not something you have to use to create something new in that sense. Now, collaboration is an important topic when it comes to circularity, and I think Globe Hope over the years has had many collaborations with brands, with companies, and so on. How do you see the role of collaboration and partnerships, and are there some successful partnerships you could maybe highlight? And maybe also, I mean, to our listeners, I mean, how could a company partner with you if they would be looking to enter the area of circularity or do something specifically in the area of textile circulation?
It's a very relevant question, because there's so much textile. Again, now I use waste myself, but so much textile out there when it comes to post-industrial waste. Post-consumer waste is something that we try to stay away from, because it's a very complex, like even more complex thing. With mixed mixed fibers and everything, but post-industrial waste, I can't even single out any company that we've worked with that would be a good example. But you look at basically all the big companies listed in the Finnish stock exchange over the years. Most of them have worked on I would say, collaborative collection, but some products made from their waste. Could be advertising banners, could be trade fair carpets that they've used on an event. It could be jackets, trade fair jersey, T-shirts, and everything that could be made or has been made into new products, often into bags. A lot of material would have been used as the inner lining of maybe a laptop bag, and the outside would be a trade fair carpet material. It could be technical fabrics from jackets who are really durable. The jacket is not usable anymore, but then the bag serves as a new item. And the biggest advantage of this is that there's a company who can utilize this in their own channel, whether it's PR or just as a gift to the staff, when they would otherwise buy a product from virgin materials.
Yeah.
And in this case, they can basically utilize the material that's already there. If you look at, probably most of you would know scope 1, 2, and 3, about the carbon footprint of companies. We can only make an impact. Now, we can make an impact, of course, on all the scopes. But 1 and 2, the percentage to the entire impact is really small. It could be 10, 20%, depending on the company, both those scopes combined. Scope 3 basically has the biggest impact on the climate and on emissions. And within that scope 3, maybe 70-80% of the overall impact comes from scope 3, and within that scope 3, the material part, the production of the material in the fashion industry or the bags design industry is 70 to 80%, depending on the industry within textile. So if you look at the entire scopes, the share of material production is huge. It's 70% most likely, or somewhere there. If you use material that's already available, you basically cut that to zero. That's a big impact. If you utilize a recycled yarn, you don't cut it to zero, because even the production of recycled yarn will require resources and will have an impact. I read a study that it's just 20-30% less of the impact from the material production if it's a recycled yarn, recycled polyester from PET bottles. You still have maybe half of all the scopes comes from the material itself. So if we cut this to a non-virgin material, the impact is huge. I don't say it wouldn't be important to use new materials, recycled materials, that there's a lot of innovation happening. That's very important. Overall, it will probably in the future have a bigger impact. At the moment, the biggest impact comes from prolonging the life cycle, and there are companies and collaborations with partners who can actually, by their decision, make an impact. If we give them the resources to do that, has the biggest impact on the entire circularity.
No, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right there. There will not be one single solution going forward, but there will be different solutions. There will be recycled materials. There will be reuse of material. There will be life extension, repairability, durability. All of these basically need to coexist at the end of the day in order to help us solve the problem. Now, the coffee is empty, unfortunately, and we need to wrap up the Circular Coffee Break podcast. But before I let you go, one question. I mean, looking ahead, like what innovative strategies or projects are you looking at? Are you exploring at Globe Hope to basically further the idea of circularity and maybe to reach even more people with your products? And expand to new users, new customers in that context. So what are some of the strategies, projects you're planning in the future that we can look forward to?
Yeah, very good question, and I wish I had an answer to what makes sense for us to do in the future now, but what I know is that we need to look into material innovations. I think there's so much happening at the moment, whether it's recycling material not just in a mechanical way, but in a way where the fibers are opened up and the quality stays the same. I think the biggest problem we have at the moment in textile recycling is that it's not a closed loop. Nothing is a closed loop. Basically, circular economy sounds fantastic, but all recycling always like in the end at some point ends up in waste management. But with materials like glass or metal or other raw materials, it's a lot easier to keep that closed loop closed. With fabrics, it degrades a lot faster. So with these material innovations, we are able to prolong and make the circularity really work in textile industry as well, because then the material will stay, and it's then textile waste will become equal to virgin materials that don't need to be, let's say in our case, you don't need to add polyester to the cotton, because otherwise the cotton fiber would be too short because it's mechanically chopped up. Once it goes down to molecule recycling, then the quality stays the same. I think there's really a lot of things happening. When it comes to scalability, we will definitely utilize in the future in our bags as well, in our products in general, materials that can be scalable. Otherwise, we won't have a possibility to give more consumers the possibility to purchase our products at a price point where people at the moment are willing to purchase. And with this, as you mentioned, Black Friday, Black Week, Black Month, sometime it might be Black Year. It seems that it's a Black Year already. Everybody advertises discounts, and there's not so much talking about the actual attributes of the product, the beauty of the products and the design so much. It's more the price. I hope that by doing this, we are able to offer a product that doesn't need to be discounted always, but can be purchased at the normal price, and everybody gets the right share, and our subcontractors get the money they need for producing a beautiful product, and everybody kind of gains from it. And consumers learn more about Globe Hope and how we try to change the textile industry one bag at a time.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Jan Timm, for joining me today. It was a pleasure. Really great to hear about the story behind Globe Hope and your plans for the future. Thanks a lot for joining me.
Thanks a lot for having me. Wonderful.
Thanks, and thank you to all of you out there listening. We hope today's episode was, again, insightful, brought you some new ideas, and maybe motivated you to go to the Globe Hope shop or the e-commerce version of it and try out the products. If you enjoyed the podcast, like, subscribe, share. Our aim is to reach as many people as possible in the Circular Coffee Break community to share ideas and inspire the circular way of living. It helps us grow with the community and basically make sure to sign up, subscribe to be up to date on new episodes as we have new guests lined up for the following episodes that are dropping every 2 weeks. Now, the only thing left for me is to thank all of you for listening today, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you here on the Circular Coffee Break podcast.